wants to ruin our day, and proportions are saying, think again one day. All right, so 5.5 proportions. It's when two ratios are equal, meaning what ratios look like two fractions. And it says are equal. One more piece of advice right here, a little tidbit before I give you my example. To check if ratios are proportions, I need to zoom down to fit. There we go, that's better. Okay. In proportional, if I say something's proportional, what am I saying? It is what? Equal. We're going to cross multiply. Okay, so what proportions, and I'm going to let y'all write that, and then I'm going to give you the example. Proportions are two ratios that are equal, and ratios look like, they're set up like fractions. And my students are always like, they get confused as to when they cross multiply or not. It's when there's an equal sign in between them. You're checking to see if something's proportional. Here's two ratios, and I'm not going to move any further until everyone's caught up. Don't work ahead, please. Here's two ratios. Remember, ratios look like fractions, and they're set up with an equal sign here. And we're going to check to see if they're proportional or not, whether they're equal or not. You can also use this method in comparing fractions, like to see which one's greater, which one's smaller. All right, so if we cross multiply, remember the arrows go up, they do not go down. And we multiply. 12 times 6 is 72. Notice I wrote it on top. 12 times 6, the arrow goes from the bottom to the top, and I'm writing 72 with the circle. 8 times 9 is what?
72.
Also 72. So therefore, 72 equals 72. They are proportional. So if ever they want to know, are these two, fractions proportional? Are these two ratios proportional? All you have to do is cross multiply and check. In this case, when you do the cross multiplication, they both get the same number, so they are proportional. So that's one way of using all of that. Okay, what if they're wanting you're solving for a variable. And what's a variable? Very good. You can also use this method. Let's say I have 6/15 equals 8 over n. Okay, watch how I do this. We're going to cross multiply again. What is n times 6, everyone?
6n.
6n on that side. N times 6 is 6n. 15 times 8 is? Anyone?
184.
120. So then I write it exactly how it's written. 6n equals 120. Do y'all see that? I'm not moving that 6n over here or the 120 over here. I'm keeping it lined up. 6n equals 120. Now, Taylor, what do I do?
You divide 6n by 6.
On both sides, right?
Yep.
So it's intruder alert. And n equals 20. So we can use proportionals to find out what a missing variable is or a missing number is. Any questions so far? Any questions? All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn to the other side. All right. There's another way to use proportions. Setting up proportions from word problems. And you want to set it up in same order as written. Wait for y'all to catch up. Okay, what if they said, what is the ratio of adults? No, the ratio of adults to students is 2 to 7. So how many adults are there?
2.
How many students are there?
7.
All right, what is a ratio again? What does it look like?
A fraction.
That's right, it looks like a fraction. So then we're going to write it, set it up as it is written. So if they say the ratio of adults to students is 2 to 7, you would write it as 2 to 7. Two being the adults, 7 being the students. So they said adults to students, so adults is going to be on top, students are going to be on the bottom.
Doesn't that mean it could also be 4 adults and 14 students?
If we had equivalent, yes. For example, if there are 8 adults how many students? Now, you will, for this lesson, set this up as a proportion because I got to make sure you know how to set up a proportion. So if the ratio of adults is 2 to 7, they're asking, what if there were 8 adults? How many students would that be? So you're going to set it up as a proportion. If the ratio is 2 to 7 equals, what do we put for the next one?
And an N.
Sure, we can have an N as the bottom because we're looking for students. This is your adults that they gave us, and here's the adults. These are your students. And this is going to be your students. And we're looking for N. If we have, the ratio is 2 to 7, but if there's 8 adults, how many students would that be? So we're going to now set it up as a proportion and do the work. So Emily, how would I solve for N? Bingo, we're going to cross multiply. 2 times N is what, Emily?
2N.
I put it on that side and I circle it. Izzy, what is 7 times 8? 56, and I'm circling it. So then 2N equals 56. That equal sign there is really, really, really important. Because that right there is telling you what you're doing. That's setting it up as a proportion. That's telling you. All right, Cecilia, what do I do now? Divide both sides by 2. Intruder alert. And I get N equals what?
28.
28 students. Now, the ratio is 2 to 7. Guys, if your parents are looking for a school for their kid, one of the things, even public school, the big question on every parent's mind is what is the ratio of teachers to students? People, and that's even by state law, there's a lot of stuff on that. So even the public schools have to report this. They'll say, well, like the ratio for this one is 2 to 7. There's 2 teachers for every 7 students. That's a lot, right? Sometimes it's like a long time ago when I taught in Pearland, it was 1 teacher for every 30 students.
Wow.
So things have definitely changed. So when you say, okay, in the building there's 8 teachers, so about how many students would that be? Or you can look at it the other way. If they say, well, we have, the ratio at Eagle Heights is 2 to 7. Okay, let's say there's 130 students. Parents can figure out about how many teachers there should be in the building. And then they can ask, how many teachers do you have? And then they will verify that. You see what I'm saying? Because you want to stick to your ratios. If your ratios are off, people will find out that's not good. You want to keep the ratio small. You don't want 1 teacher for every 30 students. That's not going to be good. No one's going to get a good education. 2 to 7? That's almost like one-on-one education. That is incredible. Our school is probably more like 1 to 10, something like that, give or take. We got some classes that are a little smaller, some classes a little bit bigger. So
5 students.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Or like y'all, 9 students. So that's what I'm saying. Our ratio is probably 1 to 10 is what I would say. And so if someone were to say, how many students do we have? 130. So how many teachers would that tell you that we should have in our building? Anyone figure out the math?
That's 4.
If it's 1 to 10,
Oh wait, I was thinking of this.
and if it's 1 to 10 and we have 130 students,
That 13.
okay, that'd give you 13. You could set it up as a proportion.
Yay.
It would be 1 to 10, and then the n would be on top, and we'd have 130 here. So if you cross multiply, you would get 13. So then you start calculating how many teachers we have, and if we have 13 or more, then you say, okay, that sounds legit, that's good. Any questions? Does everyone have this? All right, so let's open your books to page 206 for examples. I haven't actually sat down to see how many teachers we've got. I want to say we've got more than 13.
27.
Well, I mean, like high school alone, and then we have about 130 something students.
High school has 3 teachers. Oh wait,
Yeah, well, I mean,
plus the Spanish and that's 4.
I would count core. So we have like 1, 2, 3, and then we have first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth and fifth have 1 teacher. 7, 9.
Wait, 4th and 5th are in the same class.
Yep.
Same classroom.
Yes, they're in the same classroom.
Yeah.
How are they learning 2 different things? then?
Because she teaches 4th grade first, and then she'll let them do their work, and then she teaches 5th grade.
They're very small classes. All right. Page 206. Here we go. Let's look at number 6. Let's see. Michael, read the directions, please. Busted.
Write a proportion for each of the following. Do not solve.
Oh, do not solve. That should be the best words ever.
No.
That means all you gotta do is write a proportion. You don't have to solve it.
I want to solve.
Then solve it.
Okay, number 6. Michael, read number 6, please.
If 3 grade
Augers.
can be assembled in 5 hours, how many can be assembled in an 8-hour day?
Okay, now think about that. I told you in your notes to write it exactly how it's written. So it says 3 grain augers in 5 hours. So the word 3 comes first and 5 hours comes next. So we have hours down here. And I'm just going to put grain augers on top. There you go. Now we're setting up a proportion, so that means you got your 2 fractions and an equal sign. So then it says, how many can be assembled in an 8-hour day? Where, Joanne, do I put 8 hours? On top or bottom? I got 3 grain augers in 5 hours. We're looking for how many grain augers in 8 hours.
On the bottom.
Very good. Because we want to keep that together, the hours together and stuff like that. So then I'm going to say N, or whatever you want to put. You can put X on top. This is your answer. You do not have to solve. You don't have to put your labels there. If you want, this is what they're looking for. Okay, they're just asking you to set up a proportion so you know what you're doing. Any questions about that? All right, let's look at 8. All right, Emily, why don't you read that?
If 2 barrels weighed 300 pounds together, how many barrels would it take to weigh 7,000 pounds?
Okay, so we're going to set up a proportion. That's your fraction bars with an equal sign in between. So, Emily, start from the beginning and tell me what this first one's going to look like. Very good. So 2 barrels over 300. And I'm just going to go ahead and put pounds right there so we have something to go on. Very good, because that's how it's written. 2 barrels weighing 300 pounds. You write it exactly how it's written. Okay, so then the next part is how many barrels would it take to weigh 7,000 pounds? So Emily, how would I set up the next one?
Over 7,000.
That's right. It's not always going to be exactly like, n's always going to be on the top. You got to understand that. So this is exactly how you would write it. Good job. Make sure, though, it's not always going to be n on the top. Sometimes it's going to switch. You just got to make sure you match up. If pounds are on the bottom, then pounds go on the bottom here. Hours on the bottom, hours on the bottom. Any questions about 8? All right, let's look at 10. Izzy, read 10.
If it took 40 pounds to receive 5,000 yards, how many yards could be received in 205 pounds?
All right, so how would I set up my proportion? 40 over 40 pounds, because we're going right as it's written, over 5,000. So it's 40 pounds over 5,000 yards squared. Okay, so what would I put over here? They said how many yards squared could be reseated with 225 pounds? So 225 pounds, right? Where would I put that? On top or bottom? On top, because it's pounds. So if it's 225 pounds, then it needs to go on top because we want to keep the pounds together. Do y'all see that? So then under here we can put N or X. Very good. And then you're cross multiplying song for N. But they just want you to set up proportions. So you see this time the N's going to go on the bottom. So make sure you line up the stuff that they give you. Any questions? All right, let's look at 14. Solving by using the property of proportions. All right. So Joanne, I have 91 over y equals 13 over 5. What I need you to tell me is, how do I solve this? Because we're solving for y.
You multiply 5 times 91.
Cross multiply. And then what else are we going to multiply?
Y times 13.
Very good. So notice my arrows. We're going to cross multiply. 5 times 91 is 455. I'm circling it. What is y times 13? Anyone?
13y.
13y. And I'm circling it. So I have 455 on this side equals 13y over here. Cecilia, what do I do now? Divide both sides by 13. And I get y equals what, guys?
Uh, 35.
Very good. Or you can say y equals 35. Any questions about that? Told y'all this wouldn't be bad. Let's look at 22. Ooh, that's a weird one.
Yay.
And then I'm going to set y'all free. We have 8 is to 7. And then we have 9 to 14. Those are proportions. You've got your ratios on either side of an equal sign. But that looks off, right? So what we're going to do is turn it into a regular proportion that you would understand. 8 over 7 equals 9 over 14. All you have to do is rewrite those. Don't let that scare you. And then, Michael, what do I do?
Possible 7 times 9 and 14 times 8.
Very good. And what's 7 times 9, Izzy?
63.
Good job. And Emily, what's 14 times A?
14A.
Very good. And I'm going to rewrite that as 14A equals 63. And we know we're going to divide by 14. And you're going to get a decimal, and it's 4.5. Any questions? All righty.
In this one, you kind of just did the half of the line.
So let's, yeah, exactly. You're going to be doing page 206 to 207. Or we're just going to do 206, 5 through 25 odd. And this will be due Tuesday.
Are we ever going to do bonus again?
Oh, I don't know. Now, that's due Tuesday. I'm not going to assign IXL today. I might tomorrow. I don't know. It could be like Wednesday or something.
Is it because we're still doing chapter 5 here?
Exactly. There's no reason to do it on proportions. I'd rather wait until the next chapter. As far as a quiz, I am thinking it's probably going to be Monday of next week, but I will let you know exactly when that will be later. There's no need to think about it this week. I don't even think it'll be this week.
Do you think you would notice if clones were a thing and I sent a clone in